it just seems ethical to say that this video does contain flashing images in between sections in terms of transitions. So if you are susceptible to that kind of stuff, I've created an edited version in which I've removed all of those flashes, and you can see that from the link in the description. Hello, my name is DJStudios and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm continuing my Recommending Classic Who series, and today we're going to be talking about the War Games. Now I wanted to talk about this one in particular because it is an important story. It is Patrick Troughton's last episode, and in light of recent events, as in Series 12, it brings this whole War Games episode up a lot in terms of that theory to do with the second and third generations of the Roof Doctor being in the middle of the two of them. And for that, I decided to watch it, and today I'm going to be recommending it, or not recommending it, to you. So what we do is we have like 4 sections that we judge it by. So the first one is pacing, second one's effects, third one is now different. It was originally production value or something, but it's now just characters. And then the fourth one, which is whether you'd actually recommend it or not, kind of overall, I suppose. Okay, so one of the new features that I've added, as well as a new category, is these 2 buttons either side here. So one side talks about recommendations, and then one side talks about things that you actually that you don't want to recommend. So left, right, green, red, and that means that you can either pick for each episode which one you'd like it to be. Well, I will kind of create like a list of like the best episodes to me and ones that I'd recommend to New Who, to people that watch New Who and then want to go watch Classic Who. That's kind of who this series is for. I really wanted to sit through it so that I could talk about it in terms of, is it really worth getting into? Because you are sitting there for 5 hours, I believe it is. Well, 5 hours roughly. So it's quite a big investment. And, some episodes are 4, some episodes are 6. And I don't think the longer ones really work. So does this 10-part episode really work? And what side is it going to go on? Let's find out. So the story consists of the Doctor, Zoe, and Jamie going to a planet, and this planet they find to be a planet that has been devised of different armies taken from their times and placed into one planet. Oh yeah, be careful of the after credits intro logo thing for this episode. It is just a bombardment of noise, bright lights. Basically like this. It's like you're being brainwashed. So the first one is the pacing. It's 10 parts, and as I said before in the intro, and I probably shouldn't have, 8-part episodes don't really work. So a 10-part episode, that doesn't work either, surprisingly enough. 4-part episodes follow this same plan, okay? So the first part, they tend to just appear like a villain appears. The second part, the villain probably fights the Doctor, and that's the end of part 2. The third part, the villain's plan is revealed in some form, and then they probably storm out again. And the end of the world seems nigh. And then the final one, the final part is the conclusion. And with 6-part and 8-part and 10 parts, this kind of format falls apart, so that it has to keep sort of remaining in the kind of 2 and 3 for too long, and that's when it becomes laborious to get through it, because it feels like you're not going anywhere. And I suppose pacing wise you're not for a lot of it, but it does feel quite entertaining. It feels like you're doing a sort of hefty adventure. I've been playing a lot of Sea of Thieves, and if you didn't know, that was a game, and you can't sort of just leave and come back and continue the same missions. You have to complete all of your missions before you come off, or you lose those missions. Why was I talking about Sea of Thieves? I remember. Sea of Thieves is laborious because it's kind of the same quests over and over again. You're doing the same thing that you did last night, tonight. But there's some kind of adventure there to be had. Each time you might be sailing the seas, you get attacked by another player, a kraken comes out of the water and attacks you. That kind of stuff can all happen, and the sense of adventure comes from that. So you kind of have your own fun there, and you can have maybe an episode, or an episode where something really interesting happens, like you take on a bunch of skeletons, you up till 2 a.m, killing things and plundering. I just spat everywhere, and plundering everything that you see in sight. But at the end of the day, you're still doing the same thing that you were on the first night of playing. And that's how kind of this episode feels in a very convoluted way. You're kind of watching the 2, the 3 of a 4-part episode over and over again. That's when it feels to me like when we reach to episode 8, well, I think it's actually episode 9, in fact. When we get to episode 9, the pacing just goes like that. There's stuff going on, but then when you get to episode 9, you reach this peak, and I feel like if this was like a 4-parter or even a 6-parter, you would have reached that peak in like episode 3, but because it's 10, you're reaching the peak at episode 9. For those last 2 episodes, they are thoroughly enjoyable. I actually didn't notice that episode 10 ended because it went so quickly. I was like, oh, right, it's over. It's like The Mandalorian. You sit there and you go, okay, so each episode's 45 minutes. Oh my goodness, that felt like 10. So it was like that. I need to stop referencing things. It's not making this video any shorter. Well, I actually really enjoyed the first section as well. The first couple of episodes I thought were quite enjoyable. I think that's because there was a novelty to it. Something that, a new story kind of novelty, which slowly wore down. So when we got into like episode 5, 6, 7, 8, I was really feeling the length of the story. I think I did it that time. So next there is the characters. There's a lot of them, like a lot of them. I counted, according to Wikipedia, there are 34 side characters. This includes villains, secondary characters, members of different armies, all of that. There's a lot, and you won't be able to remember their names. It's like watching Infinity War without knowing what's going on. In fact, Endgame, which is actually something that I watched people do, and they didn't have a clue. I think the villain is interesting. He's called the War Chief, so I'll speak about him first. He's fascinating to me. I find him power crazy. I find him slightly psychopathic. Because they hop between camps, almost, the Dr. Zoe and Jamie, it feels very confused in that sense that you don't really get the time to spend with a certain batch of characters, because before long you've moved on to the next one. Like, I know that they turn up, but if you showed me the pictures of them, I could not say, yep, that he's the one with a beard. Actually, I don't think they have beards, to be honest. They don't even have beards. Ow. This is such an ambitious story. You have, like I said, so many characters. You have so many locations. You've got a decent amount of fight and a decent amount of action in here. So I suppose the production of it is quite high. The fact that they were able to make a 10-part episode gives it this kind of scope and this kind of adventure that I talked about. And it allows them to kind of develop things a lot more than they normally would, but it doesn't feel like, because there's so many characters, like they have actually developed that, and I don't leave thinking, oh, I really care about all these characters after I've gone on a 10-episode journey with them. I've just watched 10 people, I've just watched 10 episodes of a group and groups of people, and they were around. It's all very confusing. And when it comes to, things such as like the time period, it's the 60s, isn't it? It's maybe 1969, maybe 70. And, there's a lot of stuff out there that we have now that now you sit there and go, that's pathetic. You've done a 10-part episode on what feels like nothing, because I think now with things such as streaming, you have this kind of constant urge to want to see the climax, a battle, for example. And, with Doctor Who, you don't get that. Sure, I knew it was slow, but it didn't feel like they were doing things unnecessarily. Okay, so it's time for my little final overall stuff before I tell you whether it's recommended or not recommended. So these final two parts I actually really enjoyed. The first part and the second part, third part, for example, I like I said before, I've really enjoyed, but I just can't see how anyone who's new to Who, which is what this is for, would really be interested in an episode like the War Games, which is extremely long. Even though it feels like it has that weight to it, that adventure, it doesn't have the best pacing, I think, for modern times, which means that, you know, you're not really going to want to watch it if you're new. I'd say it's enjoyable to someone that is like a hardcore kind of fan. At the end of the day, I wouldn't recommend it to someone who's new, or someone who doesn't have better patience. Weighing it up, I don't think that the good parts are worth the slog. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you did enjoy this video. If you did, make sure you like, subscribe if you're new. I really want to get to 200 subscribers soon. But thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you did enjoy this video. If you did, make sure you like, subscribe if you're new. And I shall see you soon. Goodbye.